So we're going to continue with the next two operations and talk about properties of multiplication and division. So multiplication is both commutative and associative. So it doesn't matter what order they're in or how you group them to do the multiplication. You get to do it how you want. Okay, so let's say we have 5 times 15 times 2. So I could multiply the 5 and 15 and then times 2, or I could multiply the 15 and 2 and then times the 5, or I could just rearrange all of them, which is what I would do. I would take the 5 times the 2 and do that part, and then I would multiply by 15, because see, that's 10, and that's going to be easier for me to do the multiplication, especially if I have to do it in my head, you know. So I would get 150, and that's how I would do it. Okay, but you could just type it in your calculator, 5 times 15 times 2, you're going to get the same answer. All right, for symbols for multiplication, we have several. Unlike addition is pretty much an addition sign, but in multiplication, you can have, you know, the X, kind of the multiplication X, I'm not sure what they call it. And then also we have the dot, sometimes you'll see that. And sometimes they won't put a symbol, like they'll just have 15 times 2, and they'll put it in parentheses so it doesn't look like 152, and you know the answer is 30. Or they might even write it like 15 times 2 with just the 2 in parentheses, something like that. All of these methods we see in math. I noticed in your textbook they're using this symbol for multiplication as a general rule. Now, if you have something like variables, which we'll talk about later, like AB, that means generally A times B. Okay, so A times B. I think your textbook has been writing it out, so you'll see that, but just so that you know, a little bit different than maybe what you did in an algebra class. Okay. We also have the distributive property. And the distributive property, let's say we have 5 times 15 plus 2. So you're going to kind of see this notation that they're using, at least in the hydraulics book I looked at. So when we distribute, we're going to do this multiplication here, 5 times 15. We're going to do that part, and then we're going to add the 5 times 2. Okay, so that's the distributive property. Everybody gets multiplied by 5 in this case. Okay, everybody inside the parentheses. All right, so what's 5 times 15? Like 75? And then 5 times 2 is 10, and you'd get 85. Okay? We'll talk about more how to do that when we talk about the order of operations, which is our last video in this section. Okay, division, it matters. Division is not commutative and it's not associative. Okay, so we care how things are grouped. So let's say you have 20 divided by 4 divided by 2. And we're going to say that's not the same thing as 20 divided by 4 and then dividing that by 2. So on the left, we'd have 20 divided by 4 divided by 2 is 2. But on the right, we'd have 5 divided by 2. And so here we're going to get 10 on the left, but here we're going to get like 5.2 or 2.5. You could do that on a calculator. And anyway, they're not the same thing. So division is not commutative and associative, but multiplication is. Now, symbols for division, you might see a division symbol like I've shown here. Sometimes they'll write it with a bar, like they'll put 15 divided by 3, like that. Or sometimes they'll write it as 15 divided by 3 with a slash mark. You have to be careful on that, so they have to be careful with how they write the symbols, but those are ways you could see division. I'm trying to think if there are any other ways. I can't think of any other ways. So you'll see each of those maybe. Okay. So next there's a quiz, and then you can come back for the next video.